don't show prep. So, so he had no idea.
I just barely make it in.
I'm sure you can tell, but we don't show.
I mean, let's put the cards down on the table here.
Miami Hurricanes, yeah. You know the name already. It's Mercy. Ha ha. It's a 6-ring Kane show. Can't forget the name though. Got Jazz, Blue, Vision, DJ, break the game code. Ain't no changing them, ain't no breaking them. Real Portland live from the Hard Rock Stadium. Ball 14 for the orange and green. You see the 6-ring champs. It's more than a dream. This is life on the field. Beyond 100 yards, a hurricane that's never still put a damage to your squad. The 6-ring Kane show. The 6-ring Kane show. The 6 Rings Kane show. You know.
What's wrong with us? Seriously.
What's wrong with us? We're Miami Hurricanes fans.
Welcome to the 6 Rings Kane Show, a show dedicated to Miami Hurricane sports, featuring the legendary Larry Bluestein, Jazz Santana, Vish, and Danny Gillette. Let's go Canes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special 6 Rings Kane Show Sunday after the win over Louisville, joined by Larry Bluestein. Blue, how's it going?
Doing good. Good. Another win. Obviously, it's I think now you look at them, it's a win is a win is a win. You know, I mean, because they've lost, and I said this yesterday, over the last 22 years, Miami would have lost the last 3 games. And so that's a good thing. So doing good.
Yeah, no, exactly. The 7-0 is 7-0. Yeah, so before we dive into a little bit more detail here, we get to our sponsor. Well, one of our sponsors, which is, if I can find the stupid thing here, which is U-Brake Wheel Fix. So have you ever run over a pothole that you're so hard that your steering wheel shakes, or you're losing air in your tires and you have to keep refilling it? Chances are there might be an issue with your wheels. U-Brake Wheel Fix is your solution. U-Brake Wheel Fix is Miami's premier wheel repair and restoration company. They have over 20 years of experience, located right there in North Miami. They'll offer quick repairs, and if they can't get it done quickly, they do have loaner services that they'll offer for free. If you're looking to brighten up your wheels, maybe get some new wheels instead of buying new ones, you can refinish them. They have in-house wheel refinishing solutions, including powder coating, machining, polishing, and it'll make your car look new. Contact Mark at 305-748-0112. Follow them on all socials at U-Brake Wheel Fix. That is the letter U, the word break, B-R-E-A-K, wheel, W-H-E-E-L, fix. And if you mention 5 reasons, you'll get 5.5% off your next repair. That's U-Brake Wheel Fixed, located at 1848 Northeast 143rd Street, North Miami, Florida, 33181. Blue. All right, so one thing that does, 7-0 is 7-0, but one thing we could use a U-Brake Wheel Fix to fix is this defense. So it was a shootout. Of course, the Canes winning 52-45. I guess, what are your initial thoughts on how the game went?
Well, I thought it would be that type of game, not that high. Yeah, I think I picked 38-34 or something like that, 38-35. Where's the pass rush? I mean, that to me, and I'm not saying that, and I'm not going to minimize the opponents, but early on, I mean, we saw all those guys that were just, nobody could stop them. Now you can look and see how much time, like yesterday, Louisville had forever sometimes to throw, and you knew that he was going to pick out a receiver because the secondary is not the strong part of the team. So you figured if this kid has any time, he's going to find people, and he did. And so that kind of bothers me a little bit. Which doesn't bother me, the linebacker play has started to really get better. Gary comes up with a big play yesterday, recovering the fumble for the touchdown. Late in the game when Miami needed a stop, Kiko Mawanoa came up with a play. Wesley Bassane came up. So I like that part of it. It's just that we can't get, and Ruben Bain, who's, he's just a beast. But isn't that crazy, though, that here Ruben Bain comes back and the other three guys who were kind of dominating when he wasn't here aren't doing as much as they did. And I think that, in essence, Vish, is the reason why Miami's giving up all these points. Because, early on, that front seven was giving the secondary, time to kind of adjust and to learn on the fly and, but now they're not doing that. And so they're left on islands, and they're just really not good enough to do that yet. And even the best of teams, you watch Texas and Georgia, and you look at, the way that those defenses are, and they're some of the best in the country. I mean, even they have breakdowns, but Miami's breakdowns are, costing them, almost costing them games. And that's the tough part.
Yeah. And it is worth that on that last point, it is worth noting. I think we talked about this maybe last week or the week before. We have this view of like what a great football team looks like compared to our great teams, which were some of the best in the history of college football. And that's just, there's no team like that this year across the board. Like if you watch Alabama and Tennessee play yesterday, they set offensive football back like several decades in that first half. And the Canes are doing the opposite, right? They're doing the defensive equivalent of that, but scoring pretty much every time they hit the ball.
No doubt.
So one's not better than the other, and I think we keep saying, well, the 2001 team would have done, but that was
you can't compare.
And so I think if you, like you said, Georgia and Texas, that's a 1 versus I think 4 or 5 matchup, whatever it was last night. And I mean, Georgia's defense looked really good. Their offense turned it over 3 times. They actually struggled quite a bit there and kept Texas in the game. Texas didn't look good at all. You mentioned, Lou, the Miami defense might cost them a game. All those teams have lost. So
I know.
So, it's not, look, you win 9 more games in a row, you win the championship. You're not going to do that with this defense. I think they got to get better. I did think early on the linebackers struggled in the running game. I think Kiko had a couple of rough plays where he kind of ran himself out of a couple of their explosive plays that he gave up when he kind of misread the play. But then to your point, once they settled in, I thought the linebacker play was fine.
Yeah.
I think they're just trying to, look, it makes sense, right? We have this defensive line with first-round talent all over it. Hey, we're going to rush 4, and you guys need to get the job done there. And they're not. And so then, like you said, everyone knows our secondary is not good. And Tyler Show's a really good quarterback. The only reason he's at Louisville is he kept getting injured, right? He actually played with McCormick at Oregon 7 years ago. So 2018, 6 years ago.
Yeah, I guess he did.
So there's, but we knew he was a good quarterback. We knew Louisville had a really good offense. Their offense, like their head coach, Braum, is an excellent offensive coordinator. So that front four really need to get home. I will say Louisville got away with quite a bit of holding to aid that. And that's just the way the game was being called. So you got to play through it. But yeah, Guidry I was hoping coming out of the bye week, there'd be a little bit of, change there. And then it's just not happened so far. So we'll see. We got some comments in the chat here from Hurricane Grind Mode. Dale, one of the things he's talking about too, Blue, I wanted to get your thoughts on what is going on with the tackling, because it was pretty atrocious as well.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's been ever since Mario's gotten here. That's been kind of a sticking point. The 2 years ago it was like junior varsity type tackling, and then last year seemed to improve a little bit. But it seems like when they get a quality opponent, let's face it, the kid Isaac Brown's a big time kid. I mean, he was recruited by everybody. Ja'Cory Brooks from Booker T. Washington, who went to Alabama. I mean, they have quality kids, but that being said, Miami should at least come up with these plays, and then to his point, it seemed like when they made initial stops and they read, and that's the thing people don't understand, Bish, is, the defensive coordinators and defensive coaches can put you in that position, which Guidry does quite often, but if you don't make the play, that can't be on him. I mean, that's, that's on those kids. And that happened 2 or 3 times yesterday in the second half. When after the fumble, it seemed like Miami's defense kind of, went back in a shell, at least the front seven. But I can't put my finger on why that, Virginia Tech. And although I said, after the Virginia Tech game, I don't think Virginia Tech's going to lose. I think they beat Clemson. They're a good football team. So, but that being said, Cal,
the Cal one is the troubling one because they don't score
very
anyone.
troubling because they don't score against anybody.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden they're world beaters against Miami. It's I don't know if it's a scheme or is everybody just not that as good as we think they are? I mean, because I know that against Ball State, who actually battled Vanderbilt yesterday, and against Florida A&M, and even against Florida, and Florida's not bad. I mean, they're playing better than a lot of people thought they'd play. So you got to give them credit, but Miami just needs. I mean, offensively, nobody's equal to Miami. No,
number 1 in the country, yeah.
Except UNLV's number 2. But
everything's going your way, Blue.
Yeah. Well, except for next week, Boise State. Miami's offense is gonna, even if they misfire on a couple of plays or make a mistake, they have too much talent. I mean, you can't match up with everybody. I don't care how good the secondary is. If you're going against Miami, and then you got to worry about, and let's call Martinez out. I've been highly critical since he got here, and yesterday I thought he played his very best game. And you mentioned, in some of those games he was more of a situational player, and they weren't looking for him to bust, off big plays. But I'll tell you, yesterday he really impressed. I mean, but getting back to the defense, which we were addressing, they're just, I don't know. They're just not executing. Like you said, they're missing tackles. But the pressure to me, and now I kept writing notes down during the game that I wanted to talk about. And I kept saying, wow, where are these kids making sacks? Where's Barron? Where's any of these guys? Obviously we know already what Bain's going to do. I mean, and he's still, not 100%. He's still, feeling his way back. I mean, he was off for 3 weeks. So, I mean, that's not easy to just snap right back in. But, that to me is troublesome. And, maybe not against FSU, maybe not against Duke, but you never know down the line. It could be, I mean, if but this offense has no peer. I mean, this offense I think they could do this against anybody, really. And because they got too many weapons, and you can't match up with this many weapons.
Yeah, no, just back to the defense, and we'll talk offense a little bit here. The front four is it's probably the most disappointing unit the last few games, just not getting pressure. Elijah Alston had another rough game yesterday, including that run at the end of the half where he kind of just gave up on the play and allowed the running back to run past it. Was a little bizarre. We haven't seen Barron flash in a while now, and that is problematic. And so I'm wondering if I'm wondering if we did see some. I did notice, like, after their first touchdown drive, we saw like McConaughey in there. I think they're trying to rotate more now because of the disruption isn't happening, and so they're on the field a lot more. We're having to sub in a lot more.
Right.
So they're trying different things there. Eventually, you're going to have to start sending more pressures, which of course will expose the back end more. But I think the critical issue with the defense, in addition to not getting the pressure out of the line play, is just cannot get off the field on big plays. Like you mentioned, after that fumble, they actually did a good job forcing it to 3rd and long. You cannot allow a 20-yard touchdown pass on that play. Then you got to get off the field. And it was several of those where, all right, just make the stop here, and the game's basically over, and Louisville converts and keeps moving. Missed tackles. There was a phantom penalty on one of them, which wasn't great. It was 4th and a mile, and they just threw the ball up into the grass, and they called holding or whatever it was, or pass interference. That one wasn't a great move by the refs, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit as well. Some of the other calls / non-calls. The other thing, Blue, you had mentioned that it was more high scoring than you thought. I think we all pretty much had the score in the low 40s, high 30s, and there were 2 non-offensive touchdowns.
Yeah,
Which is what boosted it. So 52-45, but 45-38 offensively is about where we had it pegged. So yeah, I mean, this is the best offense the Canes are going to play the rest of the way on paper, at least. So until the the playoffs. So
yeah.
so
And we said that
yeah.
about Braum.
Yeah.
Great mind. He really is. I mean, you watch him, and he does. They have talent, but they don't have a Miami type of talent. But they have talent. And I knew that coming in. And
I will say, Blue. Say Blue. I think their wide receiver talent is probably better than Miami's secondary talent.
Oh yeah, well,
and that's the matchup, right? It doesn't matter that Miami's receivers are better than Louisville's receivers; they're not lining up against each other. That was a mismatch in their favor, and 342 yards later, they had well exploited it.
Yeah, no, but that all comes back to the front seven not getting enough pressure on and let him, sit back there and choose wherever he wants because. You even watch the NFL, even the best defensive backs, if they're out on an island for 10 seconds, I mean, they're not going to be able to cover these guys. And that's what happened too. I thought Porter played well. I mean, I watched him most of the game. I thought he played well, but you just can't have one guy in the secondary. And I think that Hurricane grind mode came up with a good solution. Get Patterson in there a little bit more.
I saw he did get in there more in this game, but to your point, our safety played. They look lost out there.
Yeah,
that's where
he's
Saquon,
right.
Saquon should get some more. And I wouldn't be surprised. I saw him on the field a little bit more in this game. I have a feeling. I mean, we'll see. Obviously, we know who the opponent is this week, so there's all sorts of factors going into that game. But we'll get to that in a bit. All right, let's talk offense. I know you touched on it a little bit. I thought this was the first time the running game really got cranked up. Blue, what are your thoughts on that? And also the running back rotation. Hurricane Grindmo mentioning AJ Allen came in, had a huge contribution, kind of out of nowhere, hadn't gotten any carries. Thought Fletcher played well, had the critical fumble, of course. And Damian Martinez finished that game off the way you needed him to.
Yeah, well, they make a good point. The whole thing is you get a guy like AJ Allen, who last year Jazz and I went to one of the scrimmages and watched him, and he went off. I mean, he had like 96 yards on 8 carries, and we said, dang, this kid. But then they used him sporadically. He got in the doghouse. A few things happened here and there. And then all of a sudden this year, he comes back and, not playing a key role in many games, but they probably saw something that they said, hey, listen, we give, because having Rivers back, I don't care what anybody said, was huge. I mean, he really held his own. You got to remember the kid Gillette from Boca Raton is one of the best defensive linemen in the ACC, and he didn't have his way yesterday. He came up with a couple of plays, but that's the great thing about having somebody like Cam Ward, because if there's a pass rush, he steps up and then scrambles a little bit, almost too much sometimes. He kind of keeps you at the edge of the seat, but that's him. And they were talking on, after the game, I was listening to some of the, analysts, and they go, the thing that makes him special is you don't know what he's going to do. He doesn't do things, that are scripted. I mean, so you don't know, even if you've watched Miami play and then you go by what their tendencies are, he kind of jumps the shark and makes, think, oh, okay, well, we can't, they're in this formation and this is what they did out of the formation against Virginia Tech. But damn, you see, and that's one of the things Restrepo keeps showing that he's the dude, I mean, and I'll tell you what, he's legit. I mean, he does it against everybody. And that opens it up, Vish, for everybody else. And like you were talking about the running game. Okay. Running game. We know that Fletcher can run. He gets, Martinez had a really good day because what he did is he got you those hard yards and ate up clock. See, nothing disappoints me more than going 3 and out and wasting 50 seconds off a clock. You can't do that. You have to, I don't care whatever the opponent is, the way you look at like teams, like a Georgia. I mean, they'll mix it up. I mean, yeah, Beck but they're going up against a kind of a different opponent. But still, they run the ball. They run the ball. They have these 3, 4, 5 minute drives. Miami had that one long. Was that the opening drive or one of those drives? I think it was like in 8 minutes or 9 minutes. It was, but that's what you have to have. And I'm not saying every time that you could have those 8, 9 minute drives, but at least, put together, some drives where you're going to eat up some time. And because if not, especially against Louisville, you don't want to keep putting the ball back in their hands.
Yeah, it was the first drive of the second half where it felt like Miami ended the game. Frankly, that long drive took half the third quarter, punched it in up 14, and then kick return for a touchdown, fumble the next play there in the end zone. That 14-point lead went away in less than like a minute in a few seconds. So, and to your point from earlier, Blue, like that's a game Miami loses. You take that sucker punch of, okay, we're up 14 to tie it all of a sudden within a minute.
Yeah.
That's where old Miami teams would have folded. Instead, the Hurricanes offense scored touchdowns on every single drive. There's the game after that, other than the kneel down at the end of the game. So 3 touchdowns in a row, just, all right, we're just going to score a turn with the ball, and then they can't win.
But even that one, it was 38-24, and then the next second you look, it's 38-38.
Yeah,
so,
and they kept with it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Those are – and I know that Louisville is going to be one of the tougher offensive opponents, but they also played that way against Cal, and they also played that way against Virginia Tech.
Yeah,
so
Virginia Tech I'm less worried about because I think Virginia Tech really, though, their 2 losses were a little bit fluky if you watch them.
I agree.
We actually talked about that before the Virginia Tech game, how their quarterback Drones is really good.
Very good.
And he had thrown more interceptions in those first few games than he did all of last year. When we say regress to the mean, we usually use it as someone's outperforming their ability. It's going to come back. In his case, it was the other way. To make that balance out, he's basically going to not turn the ball over. And they've been playing really well lately. Frankly, not out of the realm of possibilities because those were both out of conference losses that we see them in Charlotte, to be honest, Virginia Tech. So that they're a really good team. And to your point, Blue, on the running game, I think Rivers made all the difference. It's just having that one extra quality lineman out there. I saw we also rotated Bell in at tackle and moved Rivers inside a bit. Just it gives you 6 linemen you can rotate through, keep them fresh. Obviously, Rivers also our most talented offensive lineman on top of that. So just that I think is what helped enable the running game. I think we've all been critical at times of like who's getting what carries at running back, and now of course you see AJ Allen come in there and run like that. Like he needs to get more carries. I think they're doing a really good job of mixing it up. Because we had 3 running backs really positively, effectively impact the game yesterday. Sure. That's hard to do. In the first half, like, well, Fletcher needs more carries, but then, then AJ Allen comes in there and lights it up, and when he needs more carries, then they close the game with Damian Martinez running over the entire Louisville defense. It's like, well, maybe they're actually doing this correctly and just spreading it around to all the running backs.
But and also, a lot of people, all the fans don't understand. They spend the whole week game planning. They're not just gonna, they have say, listen, we're gonna put AJ in here, we're gonna do this, because this is all scripted. They don't just sit home, or they don't just sit in their offices and hang out all week. They're watching game film, they're watching tendencies. They're saying, well, you know what? If they do this, maybe let's put AJ in here, and maybe AJ could create some things, especially with Rivers blocking. Maybe he opens up a little bit more of a hole, than most would. So yeah, fans have to understand this. This isn't fly by your seat. You can't just continue to change as the defense changes. I mean, you just got to go with your game plan. This is what got you here. This is what got you to be 6-0. And, their play calling, sometimes kind of boggles your mind. But remember who you have back there at quarterback.
Yeah, it's a tough challenge, right? Because actually in the first half, it was 24-14.
Yeah.
Ball was around midfield, and Fletcher had ripped off a couple of big runs to get it down. Or maybe it was on the plus 40s. Barely into Louisville territory, just outside field goal range. And, the Canes tried to throw twice in a row, got sacked twice, and had to punt. Felt like I could have just stuck with the run game, grinded that half out, and maybe iced the game there a little bit. But to your point, it's hard to be critical. And I thought like it should stuck with the running game. Fletcher was hot. That's how they moved the ball. But, I mean, it's hard not to just say, here, Cam Ward, here's the ball. I mean, he's the best player in the country. And so as much as like even I'm like, oh God, stick with the running game, it's working. You still like the ball not being in Cam Ward's hands feels like a win for Louisville just generally. So I get why, again, we get critical at times of they could have stuck with the running game, they could have grinded it out more. But I mean, if the alternative is Cam Ward's throwing the ball, then that's not a bad alternative. So it's hard to be critical of them throwing too much there. The other guy you mentioned, Restrepo, again, just so talented and manages to get open regardless. That his route running is elite. He catches everything. And I do wonder on that. It was one of the worst onside kicks we've ever seen, if we're being honest here. But
oh wow!
but I do wonder if the 43 threw them off. Like, not only with like a slow roller to no one, it went right to like our best. If there's one guy when we're lined up to defend that onside kick, you're like, please let the ball find Restrepo.
Yeah,
he's wearing his oversized 43 jersey, so maybe it fooled him into kicking it at him. But yeah, that was not a great effort there for them. Any other kind of thoughts on that game, Blue? I feel like we've touched on a lot.
I thought they were going to use the tight ends a little bit more. They used them sporadically. I don't. Arroyo needs to keep. To get more targets. To be more effective. I think. Because he's okay blocker. He's not the greatest blocker in the world. But what you need him on that field, and because 99% of the time, everybody knows they're going to be going to the Restrepo or one of the wideouts. So if you can continue to filter the tight ends, in the game, and that was my one criticism of the past, that they just never use the tight ends enough. You look at some teams like Iowa. Obviously Iowa always has first round draft picks at tight ends, but you see the way they use them. They almost use them like receivers, and they have one guy to block and one guy that runs patterns. So if you get Arroyo so damn athletic and big that he would be a mismatch with any linebacker or any safety coming up. So, I would kind of look, at things like that, but I'm not going to be highly critical of an offense that's averaging 535 yards a game.
Yeah, and first time in school history scored 50 plus 4 times, and we're 7 games this season. So, and then it is the number one offense in the country statistically, and it plays like it. So, like I said, that second half was a touchdown, a fumble, then touchdown, kneel. You come out of the half, you do that, you're going to win a lot of games doing that.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
The other thing I will say, Louisville, I thought this is the first time a defense really geared up to stop the pass. Their linebackers were dropping deep. I think that might have impacted Arroyo a little bit. They just had a lot more traffic around him. But yeah, did he even catch a pass yesterday? I'm trying to. I don't know that we had any. I'm looking right now. No, we had no tight ends catch a ball.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that is, and that's something that we had done a lot more of.
And I watched I was kind of watching. I was, like I said, I was making notes, and some of the things that even though they're going, I said, you know what? Because you look, and then, they'll show replays, and you'll see a tight end. He'll come across the middle. He'll chip somebody. Then he's wide open. And I'm thinking, somebody like Ward who could scour the field like nobody, you'd think that he would see him.
He's the thing with, to your point with Ward from earlier, he's kind of just playing his game. So, he might be scrambling around at that point, moving around. Again, he's just got to let him be himself.
No doubt.
He always
seems to know where to get, like that first down, a couple of the first down runs. He just seen, you think he's going to angle out of bounds, and then all of a sudden he takes a little quick step and he gets that first down, and that's instinct, because they're not watching that yellow line.
Yeah, one of the, God, I forget who this was. One of the commentators a few weeks ago, and my friend Glenn called this out to me. Said it's like watching Luka Doncic play basketball. Like, he doesn't look faster than everyone, but he gets where he needs to go and he finishes. And I don't know how he keeps getting layups. Like, why can't anyone stay in front of this guy who does not appear to be fast? And it's kind of, like you said, he knows how to find the first down. He knows how to scramble strategically. He obviously knows how to keep plays live and throw balls in the scramble drill. And the other thing you mentioned earlier, why it's so hard to game plan him, is he's like a pitcher that has 4 pitches. Like, he'll fire the fastball when he needs to. He'll throw the changeup. He'll throw the slider, throw the curveball. It's just, they talk about his arm angles, but also the pace with which the way he's able to mix up his paces on his throws. He's got the touch passes. He's got the cannon when he needs it, and just makes it incredibly difficult to defend. because you don't know when the ball's coming out, how it's coming out. And I think that's what it's like you said, you can game plan all you want, and then he just throws from an odd arm angle with some arc on it and drops it over the safety or whatever. It's like, okay, what was that? That was not on tape. So it's just
no. And it's funny. I guess it's flattering because I'm watching more and more games, and a lot of these quarterbacks are doing what he kind of improvising.
Yeah.
They'll start running the ball, and then they'll spot a tight end, who's just right at the line of scrimmage, and they'll get it to him, like street football. Like Pat Mahomes does that. I mean, obviously, and I'm sure Ward had watched a lot of Pat Mahomes to see, because they're similar quarterbacks in that way that they, you never know what they're going to do.
Yeah. I guess the last subject, I've seen some comments talk about the officiating a little bit. So, yeah, no, it was not. Just to be clear, we try not to talk about agendas against Miami. However, I mean, this was a game where Miami had 55 penalty yards, Louisville had 38. I felt like they let a lot of stuff go. Especially, I think both offensive lines probably got away with some holding. I don't think they called a holding. They might call one the whole game. So that, I think, if you're gonna go that route and start looking, there's a holding, you can find them on both sides. I will say, glaring one was they wiped out Miami's first start. They wiped out a touchdown for a pick, which was barely contact, although Arroyo, not an intelligent play, stick your arms out. He probably didn't need to do that because X would beat the guy just off the line and would have scored anyway. But then, Louisville's touchdown where they threw it to their running back was clearly a pick and they didn't call it. That inconsistency is galling. And then look, that not fumble by Cameron. I mean, he threw the ball forward 8 yards. That's not controversial to change that. It was controversial to actually let it run because it was so obviously not a fumble that both teams stopped running.
Yeah, that's officiating. I'll bet you they're going to address that at their meetings because that thing should have been blown dead from the beginning. And that happened last night in the Texas-Georgia game where a play should have just been blown dead from the beginning, and then they let it go. And then when they called it against them, they started throwing bottles on the field and stuff like that.
No, it's just
you can't let it. That's part of the officiating. You got to keep control of not only the field but making calls.
Yeah, and look, I get the theory is that, you let the play run and then you can always overturn it. That's not how you should officiate games. If you see it's an incomplete pass, you just call it incomplete.
Call it that way.
Because the other thing that happens then is then you get like people again with bias saying, because the call on the field was a fumble, they need more. And again, he threw the ball forward 8 yards. So there's no way that's a fumble. But you do if the standard for replay review is going to be the call on the field takes precedence, you need to make the correct call on the field then of what you think happened. And
not speculate what if we look at it, maybe it's gonna can't go by it. You can't officiate like that because anybody can officiate like that.
Right.
Part of being an official is you're good at your craft. I mean you're good, seeing things and understanding plays. But Vish, if you like you said, if you start officiating with what ifs, you're gonna you'll lose every time.
Right. And in this instance, they let the play run so that way, if it's incomplete, they can always put it back incomplete, which is what they did. If it's not, then they don't want to have blown the play dead and potentially taken away a return. But you then can't use what was the call on the field as some kind of a tiebreaker. Now in this instance, it wasn't even close to a fumble, so it was an easy call. But that's not good officiating, and we saw a lot of poor officiating. Actually, the play you mentioned last night was Texas an intercepted and ran back inside the 10. They called defensive pass interference. They marked it off. They lined up to snap it. Texas fans threw a bunch of trash on the field. They cleaned up the trash and then said we huddled and decided it wasn't pass interference and gave Texas the ball back, Which look, it was a bad initial call.
No, it was a bad call.
But you can't, once you called it and marked it off, I'm sorry, it's over. Bad calls happen. What they clearly did was they either looked at the replay board or someone told them, hey, that's a bad call. And they changed it because of that. And that's just cheating. Like, if you miss a call, you miss the call. You can't replay review, look up at the thing, but oops. And then take away a penalty. Like, if you want to start doing that, that's crazy. And the only reason they did that was because they also, they had the time to do that because they threw bottles on the field, so they rewarded that behavior too. Nice job. That was atrocious officiating.
Yeah.
That's just look, when you make a bad call, you own it after the game, say, yeah, we blew the call. You don't then try to like fix it. This is like childhood cliches. 2 wrongs don't make it right. In that instance, like using replay or whatever they use to then say, oh, we've decided it's not pass interference. No, you made a bad call. You still got to own it. And Kirby Smart was absolutely within his right to get mad.
Yeah,
at
he
that.
was.
Like you can't take a penalty away. They marked it off. Like they didn't get any new information unless someone told them in their ear they blew it, or they went and watched the replay while all the trash was being cleaned up, which is what I think probably happened. Because Texas has those huge boards.
Yeah.
You can easily see it on the field, look up while they're cleaning the trash up, and then see that it was a bad call that we huddled and decided to change. It was horrible officiating, and then the SEC released a statement which is completely inaccurate with what actually happened on the field. So now you know something shady happened. They should have just let it go and not talked about it. But their statement was something along the lines of, after initially throwing the flag, they huddled and decided not to call it, which is not what happened. They called it. They marked it off. Georgia lined up to snap the ball. Then they paused the game to clean the trash. Then they decided it wasn't, which is so, again, it doesn't paint them in the best light. So as much as we complain about ACC officiating, I've never seen like that, at least, happen in our games. With that said, we're gonna hit up some underdog fantasy here, and then we're gonna talk FSU. It's FSU Weekly.
Guess what, everyone? Football is back, and it's here to stay until February. Did you know that you can enhance your football viewing experience with Underdog Fantasy? Join over 1 million fans across 33 states that made picks on Underdog last year. My personal favorite is the higher-lower plays on my favorite NFL players on Sunday mornings after watching the Canes win on Saturday. The website is easy to use, and the plays are easy to make. I love playing CeeDee Lamb higher rushing yards and waiting for the Cowboys to run a reverse. I never got into fantasy football because I didn't want to cheer against my own team, but with Underdog Fantasy, I can support my team by making picks for higher stat lines. Making picks on Underdog is straightforward, and signing up is even easier. Just head over to Underdog's simple-to-use mobile app or UnderdogFantasy.com. Sign up with the promo code 5REASONS. That is the word 5 reasons spelled out FIVEREASONS. And Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code 5REASONS, to claim your new customer special of a free pick and your deposit over.
Must be 18 or over, 19 or over in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 or older in Colorado for some games, 21 or older in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona, dial 1-800-NEXT-STEP. That's 1-800-639-8783 or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY, which is 467-369.
All right, we're back. Blue, I know you can't make the show tomorrow, so we're going to talk a little FSU, get your thoughts on that. I'm sure everyone's aware, but FSU coming into this game 1-6, Canes 7-0. It does feel like it'll be closer than those records would indicate. On paper, this is the last warm-up game the Canes have this year, but of course FSU, it's not going to be that easy. What are your initial thoughts on FSU coming to Miami next weekend?
Yeah, well, obviously, I think when they made this game and people were looking at it, both of them had a chance to be 7-0, and I'm sure it would have been, a marquee game. And even though they put it on at night. So you see, that's the thing, too. They're still going to draw. You're going to have 55, 60,000. You're still, it's just the way it is. It's Miami and FSU. There's going to be 300 recruits at the game. Some of the key guys that'll be here, that Miami's after for this class and the next class. And, FSU is, they haven't been continually blown out. They keep losing by 6, 7, 8 points. So that shows you that, they've got talent, and they're obviously this makes their season. because for the most part, they won't get a bowl game because all they got to do is lose one more game, and most likely they won't. But this is their season. They come out of here, with a win or, whatever. But you know what? Miami still remembers they came close last year, could have won it with a quarterback in Emory Williams. Then the year before, they got their butt kicked, at Hard Rock Stadium. So Miami's going to come out. They got to play a little bit more fire. Their defense is what their defense is. It's not going to change. It really isn't. I mean, you can hope for it to change, but I mean, they'll give up some points. I mean, although Florida State don't have a great quarterback, but they do have a running game, and they'll play. But offensively, I don't see FSU being able to slow Miami down. If teams like Louisville and the other programs, Virginia Tech, and they couldn't slow Miami down, no, they're not going to slow them down. I mean, Miami's still going to do what they're going to do. The weapons are not going to change. The running game's not going to change. You're having the best quarterback in the country is not going to change. The only thing that changes, and you look at the Red River Shootout, and obviously every year you don't care what the records are, whether Texas is great or Oklahoma is great. It's going to be a good game. This on normal times would be that way, but over the last 3 years, other than last year, Miami had the blowout at home a couple of years back, then lost the game, a big game. I think Miami wins this thing like 35-14. I mean, they just, it's just how it is. And like I said, it's going to be a great crowd, probably the biggest crowd by far the whole year. So, and you're going to have a lot of crazy fans. And this is what this rivalry is all about. It's not a hate rivalry like the Florida Gators. It's more of a mutual respect. It's always has been. As far as the players, they all want to, know each other, and they played with and against each other. So, yeah, this is, but Miami can't lose sight of the fact that if you let your guard down, you could lose. And you don't want to do that, especially in this year that has been so magical. And, your offense is going to do well. You just got to tighten up. Maybe this will be a good game to kind of get the confidence back on the defensive side.
Yeah, I will say, Blue, Florida State's defense has not been that bad.
No.
If you look at SMU is the only one that really blew them out. They lost to Clemson by 16, but only gave it 29 points. They somehow, and this somehow was their offense kept turning it over, but 4 turnovers last week. Duke had 180 yards of total offense.
Yeah.
And won the game 23-16. I mean, so their defense seems to have kind of found their footing a little bit. So, their offense, however, is terrible, especially we were all talking about how bad DJU was earlier in the year. Like, these guys are worse. And, they pulled Brock Glenn and where I think is his name. What's his name? Brock's on the Brock Glenn. Glenn.
Yeah,
yes.
Brock Glenn, yeah.
Yeah, they pulled him in the first half, brought him back in, but not really effective. So I mean, they don't really. So to your point, Blue, this is the defense has got to pull their weight this week because I think Miami could score on anyone. It's the best offense in the country, but it's not going to be 50 points. This Florida State defense.
No,
they're too good defensively for that, which means the defense has to actually show up this time. And against an offense that is pretty terrible, they should be able to.
Yeah,
like there's no excuse for giving up a lot of points this week. And they should hold Florida State under 20 points, which should allow the Canes to get enough offense to win the game. The only equalizer here could be turnovers, but Florida State's actually been the high turnover team. So, but they beat Cal 14-9. That's their one win. So
it's a good defensive game. I'm like, you're right though. Other than the SMU game, other than the SMU game, they played really, their defense. Even Clemson game. I mean, they played pretty tough on defense.
Yeah, and it's just that their offense has been lacking. So, that's the Canes can't give up 40 points here and expect to win this week. So,
right,
gonna need to play a little bit more defense. Are there any like matchups you're looking forward to see, Blue? I know you see a lot of these kids on the high school level on both teams, and now into college.
FSU does have a pretty decent secondary. They're very athletic in the secondary, but like it is against every team Miami's going to play. Do you have enough in the secondary to match up with 5-6 receivers and a tight end, which you haven't used much? But Restrepo takes, he does his thing. I don't care who it's against. He's going to do, because he's never going to draw the corner. He's always going to draw safety inside because he doesn't run those type of routes. He runs everything inside, and you're not going to waste your corner coming across. So it'll always be the other receivers. It'll always be, those guys that'll draw the corners. But Florida State happens to have two good safeties. So this will be a test. This may be Restrepo's biggest test as far as, the defense he's going to see. But on the other hand, Miami having so many weapons, if all of a sudden you're, if you're pressing Restrepo 12, 14 yards and then letting him go and then free safeties picking him up, there's got to be somebody open. So I think that, and especially Ward, he's going to see that. And he has a tendency sometimes to try to fit that, that ball right into tight spots, and it's not easy to do that. And we'll see what happens. But I definitely think the Miami talent for talent, this is really no contest. But like you said, Florida State does have some pushback. It's going to be one of those games they're going to have fans. I mean, no doubt they always do. They're going to have plenty of fans and, fans that may not like what's happening, but they're still going to come out to the game because it's Miami. And it'll be a better game than most people think anyway. And it should be. Can't hear you.
What was this big red thing on my thing that said mute? I don't know. One of the things, you mentioned the tight ends, and obviously no catches this week. This year, though, over the first 6 games, have been using them more. This feels like a game where, given the strength of FSU secondary and the weakness they seem to have at linebacker, that's an area
you're right.
The Canes might look to exploit. The other thing, I think the best sign coming out of the Louisville game is finally getting that running game going, because this is potentially a game with the Canes' strength on the offensive line and with Jalen Rivers back, where you can grind out some yardage and touchdowns that way and kind of lessen the impact of FSU's strength, which is their secondary, by running the ball. So, it'll be – you don't want to be overconfident going into the FSU.
No, you're not that game.
Yeah, and it's just – but on paper, like you said, should be a mismatch. They're 1-6 for a reason, I guess. But to your point, they're gonna get their A effort. This is it. This is their season for them. They're going to lose another game. They're not going to a bowl game. If they can win this game, it'll be a little bit of salvage on this.
They can beat Miami and Florida, then that's it. That's their season.
Then they can have 3. They can go 3-9 and still be able to beat Miami and Florida. So
right.
So it's the biggest game for them. But again, this is also going to be. I mean, this is it for the Canes defense. If they can't put in a good performance here, then. Now I was just realizing yesterday we're experiencing what it was to be like Oklahoma fans. Got outscored the other team every time we got scored because the defense is going to give it right back. So, and Oklahoma won nothing since 2000. I think.
Yeah, it
was 2000. That one they stole from us. So, so it's been So that's not. You got to get more out of the defense. And this is a week where they can hopefully build some confidence. Then Duke coming in after that. Their offense isn't great either. There's a chance to kind of build a little bit of momentum going to the back half of the season. Arguably, with all the games the playoffs blew, if the Canes are to win the championship, they have 9 more games left. Because it's the 12 regular season, conference championship, and then 3 playoff games. So not even halfway there.
I don't think there's enough Maylocks in the closet for that.
Yeah. And you need some comfortable wins, hopefully, starting this week as we begin to wrap up here. Any final thoughts on the Miami FSU game next week? And then, I know it's impromptu. It was a Sunday show, but if you have some show and tell.
Yeah, I do have one.
Oh, nice. All right. Any thoughts on Miami Florida State, and then we'll do some show and tell. Final parting thoughts there.
I just, like you said, you gotta play this game like it's like you're 0-0. You really do. You're not 7-0. You know that the team across from you has the athletes. They do. You recruit them. It's not like, it's a program that's going to catch you by surprise, but at the same time, this, while Miami's still taking game after game, this is FSU's. This is it. This is their bowl game. This is it. This is their one game. If they can win this, even though it's tough to take for fans, at least you could look back and say, hey, listen, when Miami was 7-0, we knocked them off. So, yep, you can't you can't take it for granted. I got some good stuff today. This is
All right, hold on.
vintage
Let
1982.
me technology first. All right, here we go.
1982. This is you got Jim Kelly in there, Chicolo in there. This was
this is right before stuff was about to happen.
right. This is right before the stuff was going to happen, and their schedule that year was Florida, Houston, Virginia Tech, Michigan State, Louisville, Notre Dame, Mississippi State, Florida State, Maryland, NC State, and Cincinnati. Not a bad schedule for now either. And
7-4 was the record on that.
Right.
Losses at Florida, at Notre Dame, Florida State, and at Maryland.
Yeah, but
Maryland
names like Tom Olivadotti and this was a good team, like I said, and probably set the table, for the following year when it was, and I next week when I come on Monday, hopefully where I haven't seen the radio schedule, but with the way with the Panthers and the Heat, I get shifted to all these different times. So,
Yeah.
But at least we got a chance to talk a little bit.
Yeah,
I'm glad, and I appreciate you having this on a Sunday so we could recap. And then next week,
it's good. It gives us time to actually pause and think a little bit.
Yeah,
the weekdays are hectic, so
I hear you.
Thanks for joining me on this Sunday, Blue.
Okay,
everyone,
Vish.
we will have the normal show tomorrow at 8:30 without the legendary Larry Bluestein, so we'll have to persevere. We're down
Yes,
the man,
you will.
but we'll get through. All right, everyone, have a great Sunday, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Yep.
The 6 Rig Kane Show. Yeah. The 6 Rig Kane Show. Yeah. The 6 Rings Kane Show. You know.